The sound of the engine died the moment Cole Walker pulled his motorcycle to the side of the quiet street. The sun was low, spreading a soft orange tone over the small American neighborhood. Cole had stopped only to fix the strap of his saddlebag, nothing unusual. But before he could even take off his gloves, a trembling voice broke the silence. "Sir, my wife won't wake up." Cole turned instantly. Frank Harris, an elderly man with shaky hands and watery eyes, stood on the sidewalk. His breathing was short, uneven. His face looked pale, and his whole body seemed ready to collapse. Cole froze for a second. His chest tightened. The memory of another night, many years ago, hit him without warning. Another person who didn't wake up. Someone he had loved. Someone he couldn't help. The world around him seemed to shrink. Then he whispered, almost in reflex, "Let me see her now." Frank led the way as fast as he could. They crossed the yard, stepped onto the small wooden porch, and entered the house. Inside, everything looked humble but warm. Old pictures on the wall, a couch with a knitted blanket, a television playing softly with no one watching. A plate with unfinished toast sat on the kitchen table. The house carried the smell of coffee and laundry detergent, the life of a couple who had spent years together. Frank's voice trembled. "She didn't come to the door when I called her. I thought she was resting, but she wouldn't answer. I tried again, and again." They reached the bedroom. Margaret Harris lay on the bed, eyes closed, her hands resting beside her, her breathing shallow but present. Her gray hair spread over the pillow. She looked peaceful, but something was wrong. Cole leaned closer, checking her breathing the way any adult would instinctively do. He spoke calmly, trying to control his own heartbeat. "She's alive, Frank, but she needs help." I didn't want to call the ambulance without knowing," Frank said, wiping tears with the back of his hand. "Everything scares me these days. She was fine yesterday. She laughed with me. She told me we should repaint the kitchen, and now she won't wake up. You did the right thing coming outside. I'm calling now," Cole said. He took his phone from his pocket and dialed emergency. His voice was steady and clear as he explained everything he saw. He ended the call, turned to Frank, and placed a hand on his shoulder. "They're coming. Stay with me. You're not alone." Frank nodded weakly and sat at the edge of the bed, holding his wife's hand like it was the last warm thing in the world. A few minutes passed. For Cole, they felt like hours. He stood by the door, ready for anything. The house was silent except for the sound of Frank's uneven breathing. Then he heard sirens approaching. Lights flashed through the window. Paramedics entered the room quickly, asking questions, checking Margaret with practiced movements. Cole stepped out of their way, but he never took his eyes off what they were doing. One of the paramedics asked Frank a few questions. Cole answered some for him when Frank's voice broke. Soon they placed Margaret on a stretcher and carried her outside. As they loaded her into the ambulance, a young woman rushed into the yard. She wore scrubs, her hair tied back, her eyes sharp with panic. "Grandpa? What happened?" she asked, grabbing Frank's arm. "Emily?" Frank whispered. "She wouldn't wake up." Emily turned sharply, noticing Cole for the first time. Her expression hardened. She looked at his leather vest, the Iron Roads MC patch on his back, the tattoos on his arms, the motorcycle near the sidewalk. Her jaw clenched. "You were here?" she asked, not politely. Cole didn't move. "He came to me for help." Emily's eyes narrowed. "Why were you even around this street?" Cole kept his tone calm. "Just passing by." Emily didn't answer. She stepped inside the ambulance with her grandmother as the doors closed. The paramedics drove away, leaving Cole and Frank standing alone in the yard. Frank wiped his eyes again. "Thank you. Thank you for stopping. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't been here." Cole nodded. "I'll follow the ambulance. You shouldn't be alone." Frank hesitated. "You don't have to do that, son." "I know," Cole replied, "but I'm doing it." They both got into Cole's truck parked down the street. He had left it earlier near a friend's place, and followed the ambulance to the nearby hospital. The hospital lights were bright, cold. Nurses moved quickly with charts in hand. Cole helped Frank to a seat in the waiting room. Emily came out minutes later. She looked worried, exhausted, and still guarded around Cole. "She's stable for now," she said. "But she's not waking up yet. They're doing tests." Frank let out a breath of relief. Then Emily looked directly at Cole. "Why are you still here?" Cole didn't back down. "Because he shouldn't be alone." Emily pressed her lips together. She didn't argue, but she didn't thank him either. She just walked back to the hallway. Cole stayed. Time passed slowly. Frank leaned against the wall, lost in thought. Cole stood by the window, his hands in his pockets. He wanted to help more, but he also didn't want to interfere. A doctor finally came, holding a folder with exam results. He spoke with careful words. "There's something unusual. Her blood work shows a high concentration of medication, too high for what was prescribed." Frank's face fell. "What does that mean?" "We're not sure yet," the doctor replied. "But it doesn't look like an accident." Emily's eyes widened. "What?" The doctor nodded. "We'll investigate further." Frank looked like he was going to faint. Cole stepped forward and held his arm before he lost balance. Emily glanced between the two, confused again by Cole's presence. The doctor walked away, and Emily approached the window near the waiting room. Outside, the night had settled over the city. The parking lot was quiet. Only one sound cut through the silence: the soft rumble of a motorcycle engine as Cole's bike sat parked under a streetlight. Even though hours had passed, he hadn't left. Emily whispered to herself, "Why is he still here?" She turned back toward her grandfather. But she didn't see Cole anymore. He had stepped outside, standing near his bike, looking at the hospital entrance. His eyes were focused, serious, like he already felt something bigger was happening, something dangerous, something hidden, and something he wasn't willing to walk away from. Emily Harris walked back into the waiting room with a clipboard in hand, trying to stay calm, but her heart beat too fast. She kept replaying the doctor's words in her mind. "It doesn't look like an accident." Those words didn't leave space for comfort. They brought fear. Her grandfather sat hunched in a plastic chair, staring at the tiled floor. His hands trembled on his lap. Emily sat beside him. "Grandpa," she said softly. "She's stable. We just have to wait." Frank nodded, but his eyes looked empty. "She promised me we'd go to the park this Sunday. She said she wanted to watch the birds." Emily swallowed hard. She didn't know what to say. Her grandmother was the kind of woman who kept the family strong, even when things around them weren't. Seeing her like that, silent, unconscious, scared everyone. She placed her hand over Frank's. Then she turned her head and froze. Cole Walker stood by the window near the exit. His arms were crossed over his chest, tattoos visible, jaw tight. He looked like someone who had faced too much pain and still stood his ground. Emily frowned. "Why is he still here?" She stood up and approached him. "Hey," she said in a low tone. "You don't need to stay. We're okay." Cole looked at her, calm but firm. He shouldn't be alone. Emily crossed her arms. "Grandpa appreciates your help, but you've done enough." "It's not about enough," Cole replied. "He came to me desperate. I'm not walking away." Emily hesitated. She wasn't used to bikers staying out of kindness. Most times in her job at the hospital, she saw bikers involved in fights or accidents. Never as protectors. Never as someone who waited quietly for hours. "I don't even know you," she said. "You don't have to," Cole answered. "But he needed help, so I helped." Emily sighed. There was nothing else to argue. Something about him didn't match the picture she had built in her mind. Before she could respond, the glass doors opened. 3 motorcycles pulled up, their lights cutting through the night. The sound echoed through the parking lot. Emily raised an eyebrow. "Seriously?" Cole didn't hide the small, tired half-smile that appeared on his lips. "They worry." 3 bikers walked inside: Jax, Ryder, and Micah. Leather vests, heavy boots, full beards, and serious faces. They stopped near Cole like soldiers reporting to a commander. "What's the situation?" Jax asked. Cole answered simply, "Margaret Harris. She's not waking up." Ryder exhaled, scratching his beard. "The lady who gives us cookies every Halloween?" Micah nodded. "Yeah, she always waves at us when we ride by." Emily blinked, genuinely confused. "They know my grandparents?" Frank looked up, noticing the men. "You boys didn't need to come." Jack stepped forward. "We take care of our people, sir." Emily looked between them again, disbelief flickering over her face. She had no idea her grandparents had any connection at all with bikers. Micah handed Frank a warm cup of tea. "We brought some stuff from the diner. You need to eat." Frank accepted it with shaking hands. Emily felt a strange pressure in her chest. These men didn't come for trouble. They came for support. It shifted something inside her. Before she could say anything, a nurse approached with new information. "We transferred Margaret to a monitoring room," she explained. "You can see her for a moment." Frank hurried to stand up. Emily supported him and Cole followed behind. Jax, Ryder, and Micah stayed behind, but kept watching everything carefully. Inside the room, Margaret lay under soft lights, tubes connected, monitors blinking steadily. She looked peaceful, almost as if sleeping. Frank placed a hand on her arm. "Hi, my love," he whispered. "I'm here." Emily wiped her eyes before tears fell. Her grandmother was strong, but this felt wrong. Cole remained near the doorway, silent, but alert. "Who could have done this?" Emily whispered. No one answered, but the question stayed in the air like a heavy stone. After Frank spent a few minutes with his wife, the group stepped back into the hallway. Emily decided to clear her head and walk to the vending machine. When she returned, Cole was standing near the reception desk, listening carefully as a doctor explained new lab results. Emily caught the last words. "Our medication levels were 3 times higher than they should be." 3 times. Emily's heart pounded. "We need to check who administered the last doses," she said immediately. "We will," the doctor replied, "but we have to be discreet." Emily nodded. She knew how things worked. Hospitals had politics. People protected the wrong co-workers all the time. She turned and headed toward the records office. Cole followed. "You shouldn't walk alone," he said. Emily stopped and looked at him sharply. "I'm not afraid of anyone here." Cole didn't raise his voice. "Someone did this to your grandmother. That means someone here isn't who they pretend to be." She froze, because he was right. Emily didn't want to admit it, but every instinct told her there was danger. So she let him walk with her. They entered the office with shelves full of labeled binders and digital tablets. Emily typed her grandmother's file number. She clicked through the logs, checking who made entries in the last days. There it was. K. Smith, medication adjustment. Nurse Kelly Smith. Emily felt her stomach drop. "She handled my grandmother's meds 3 times this week. Why?" Cole stepped closer, reading the screen. "Do you trust her?" Emily shook her head slowly. "She's fine. A little nervous, but nothing unusual." Cole kept his gaze on the screen. Sometimes the ones who look harmless are the ones who hide the most. Emily swallowed hard. She closed the file. She didn't want anyone seeing what she was looking at. When they returned to the waiting room, Emily noticed something. Owen Briggs. Tall, expensive suit, polished shoes, perfect hair. He stood near the reception desk speaking with hospital staff. His expression was charming, but his eyes were calculating. Frank spotted him too and immediately looked down, uncomfortable. Emily stiffened. "Why is he here?" Cole watched silently, studying Owen the way a biker studies someone he doesn't trust. Owen glanced at their group and walked over with a slow, polite smile. "Frank, I heard about your wife," he said. "Truly unfortunate. I'm so sorry." Frank didn't look convinced. Owen continued. "If you need anything, money, a place to stay, you know I'm always willing to help." Emily stepped between them. We're not interested. Owen's smile didn't fall, but his eyes did. Of course. But remember, the offer to sell your house is still on the table. Especially after tonight's scare, moving might be the safest option for you two. Cole's jaw tightened. Owen tapped Frank's shoulder like he was doing him a favor and walked away as if nothing strange had happened. But the moment he left, Frank whispered, "I don't want to sell my home. We've lived there for 30 years. Why does he want our house so badly?" Emily answered, "Because he wants the whole neighborhood. Everyone's talking about it." Cole didn't look away from Owen even when he disappeared around a hallway. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Hours passed. The bikers brought blankets and food for Frank. Emily eventually sat down to rest, exhaustion weighing on her shoulders. Cole stayed by the window. He didn't sleep. He didn't move much. He watched every person who entered the hospital. Emily caught him doing it more than once. "Why are you so tense?" she finally asked. Cole didn't look at her. "I've seen people do terrible things to vulnerable folks. When someone tries to push an old man out of his neighborhood, that's already wrong. When someone tries to hurt his wife, that's more than wrong." "And you think someone hurt her?" Emily whispered. Cole turned to her. "You saw the blood work." Emily exhaled slowly. "Yes." "Then you know," he said. She didn't reply. But he was right. Something was happening around her grandparents, and she didn't know how deep it went. At almost 3 a.m, Emily decided to grab documents from her grandparents' home to show the doctor, a list of medications Margaret had been using for years. It might help. Cole insisted on driving them back. Frank rode in the back seat quietly, staring out the window. The neighborhood was dark when they arrived. Emily walked ahead, unlocking the front door. Then she stopped. The door wasn't locked. Emily felt her heart skip. "I know I locked this." Cole stepped in front of her immediately. "Stay behind me." They entered slowly. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Cole checked the living room. Every drawer was open, papers scattered, cushions tossed on the floor. Emily's pulse raced. What happened here? Cole moved toward the kitchen. All cabinets were open. Someone had been searching for something. "Don't touch anything," he said. "Let me look first." Emily nodded, fear tightening her throat. Frank looked like he might faint again. Cole inspected the hallway, then the back door. The lock was damaged. Someone forced it open. Emily whispered, "Grandma's medical records, the medication list, her documents. They were all in that drawer." Cole glanced at the empty drawer. Whoever came knew exactly what they wanted. Frank sat in a chair, holding his head with both hands. "Why would someone do this to us?" Emily felt tears burning behind her eyes. "I don't know." But Cole did know. Or at least he suspected. This wasn't random. This wasn't a burglary. Someone didn't want the truth out. Cole pulled his phone out to call Jax when something caught his eye. A dark car parked at the end of the street. No lights, no movement, engine off. But the silhouette of someone inside was clear. Someone was watching the house, and they hadn't driven away. Cole stepped forward, jaw tight, and whispered, "Stay inside. Both of you." He walked toward the front door. The car at the corner started its engine. The lights stayed off. The tires rolled slowly, silently. Then the car sped away into the night. Cole stood at the edge of the yard, watching it disappear. He knew it for sure now. This wasn't about one sick woman. This was bigger. Much bigger. And someone out there didn't want them to find out why. Cole stepped back into the house and locked the door behind him. Emily stood frozen near the kitchen table, her hands shaking as she stared at the mess. Frank sat slumped in a chair, looking smaller than ever, like the weight of the night was crushing him. Cole spoke gently but firmly. "We can't stay here long. Whoever broke in might come back." Emily turned toward him. "They were watching us. You saw the car." Cole nodded once. "And they waited until we were gone." Emily hugged herself tightly. "They wanted my grandmother's documents, the medication list. Why? What is happening?" Frank lifted his head, voice cracking. Margaret never hurt anybody. Why would anyone want to? He couldn't finish. Emily placed a hand on his shoulder, trying her best to stay strong for him. Cole walked to the kitchen drawer that had been emptied. He sifted through the papers on the floor, looking for anything the intruders might have missed. There's something they wanted, he said, something important. Emily swallowed. Grandma always kept her insurance papers, medication list, hospital notes, everything in this drawer. And now it's gone, Cole replied. Frank put both hands over his face. I should have taken better care of this place. Cole crouched beside him. Frank, this isn't your fault. Someone planned this. They knew you weren't home. Emily frowned. But how would they know? Cole hesitated. Then he looked directly at her. You told Nurse Kelly you were leaving the hospital to get documents. Emily blinked. Yes, but that was only... Cole's voice stayed calm, but serious. Did she see which drawer your grandmother kept things in? Emily shook her head. No. She's only been inside their house once. Months ago. Cole didn't argue, but he didn't look convinced either. Something was wrong inside that hospital. Deeply wrong. He pulled out his phone and texted Jax. House broken into. Need backup. Quiet. Then added their location. Emily walked to the living room window and peeked outside. The street was empty again. Are you sure we shouldn't call the police? She asked. Cole turned to her. If we call them now, they'll file a report and leave. Whoever did this knows what they're doing. They won't leave fingerprints. They won't leave clues. And the police won't stay to guard the house. Frank nodded slowly, defeated. I don't want to leave my home. I know, Cole said. But tonight you're not staying here. Emily looked at him. Where would he go? Cole hesitated only a second. The clubhouse. We have spare rooms. It's safe. People come and go all night, and no one tries anything when the MC is around. Emily looked torn, but Frank answered before she could. I'll go, he whispered, as long as Emily comes too. Emily looked at Cole again, unsure. He met her eyes steadily. You're safer with us tonight, both of you. After a long pause, Emily nodded. The bikers arrived within minutes. Jax walked through the door first, scanning the house like a trained watchdog. Ryder followed, checking each room. Micah secured the back door and shook his head at the broken lock. This wasn't kids messing around, Micah said. This was clean work. Jax agreed. They knew exactly what they wanted. Emily watched them move through the house with a strange mixture of relief and fear. She never imagined bikers would be the ones helping her family in a crisis. She never imagined trusting them. Cole gathered everyone in the living room. We're taking Frank and Emily to the clubhouse. I'll ride ahead with Jax. Ryder and Micah follow behind. Emily looked at him. What about the house? We can't leave it like this. We won't, Cole said. I'll come back tomorrow with Micah to secure the doors and check everything. But for now, your safety comes first. Frank nodded, exhausted but grateful. Thank you, boys. Jax gave him a reassuring grin. Your family now, sir. That simple sentence hit Emily harder than she expected. They left the house shortly after. Cole drove his truck, Emily and Frank inside, while the three bikers followed on their motorcycles. The rumble of engines echoed through the sleeping neighborhood. Emily looked at the streetlights through the car window. How is this real? She whispered. My grandmother is in a hospital bed. Her house was broken into, and someone is watching us. Cole kept his eyes on the road. I've seen people go after families who won't sell their homes. I've seen worse. Emily turned toward him. Worse? Cole paused before answering. My mom died because of someone like that. Emily blinked. She wasn't expecting that. Your mom? Cole swallowed, eyes still forward. When I was 17, she had a bad reaction to the wrong medication. We didn't know where it came from, but there were buying offers on our house weeks before it happened. Emily stared at him. You think someone did that to her on purpose? Cole's voice was quiet. I think people will do anything for property and money. including hurting those who stand in the way. Emily looked down, shaken. That's what you see happening to my grandparents? Cole didn't answer directly, but he didn't need to. They arrived at the clubhouse, a large renovated warehouse with warm lights outside and several motorcycles parked in a row. The place looked tough on the outside, but the glow from the windows made it feel surprisingly welcoming. Micah opened the door for Frank, helping him step inside carefully. Emily followed, expecting chaos or noise. But the clubhouse was calm. A long table sat in the center. A TV was on with the volume low. A coffee machine hummed. A few biker wives and girlfriends were chatting in the back room, and they immediately came forward when they saw Frank. One of them, a middle-aged woman named Linda, rushed over. "Oh, honey, sit down. Are you warm? Do you need tea? Blanket?" Frank blinked, overwhelmed by the kindness. Emily's eyes softened. She didn't expect this. None of it. Cole guided her to a separate hallway with 2 small guest rooms. "You and Frank can rest here. Lock the door if you want. We'll take turns keeping watch outside." Emily stared at him. "Why are you really doing all this?" Cole didn't hesitate. "Because someone hurt your grandmother, because your house was targeted, and because people who can't defend themselves deserve someone who will." Emily felt something shift inside her. Not trust yet, but something close. Something important. Frank, exhausted, fell asleep quickly in the guest room. Emily covered him with a blanket and stepped back into the hallway. She found Cole leaning on a wall outside the room, arms crossed. "You're not sleeping?" she asked. "No," Cole said. "Not tonight." Emily hesitated. Then she asked the question she'd been avoiding all night. "Do you think this has anything to do with Owen Briggs?" Cole's jaw tightened. "I think Owen wants the whole neighborhood, and people who stand in his way suddenly get sick, or scared, or disappear." Emily shivered. "That's insane." "It's real," Cole replied. "I've seen it before. Different places, same pattern." Emily shook her head slowly. "So what do we do now?" Cole looked at her with clarity and certainty. "We find out the truth." Before Emily could respond, Ryder appeared at the doorway with his phone raised. "Cole," he said, "I got something." Cole straightened. "What is it?" Ryder walked over and handed him the phone. "A neighbor down the street has a door camera. He sent me the footage." Emily leaned closer as Cole pressed play. The video showed a blurry figure forcing open Frank's back door. But that wasn't the shocking part. The figure turned briefly toward the camera. Emily gasped. It wasn't a random criminal. It wasn't a stranger. It was a hospital uniform, a scrubs top, and a badge lanyard hanging around the neck. Cole paused the video on the clearest frame. Emily covered her mouth with her hand. "That's..." Her voice broke. "That's Nurse Kelly." Cole stared at the screen, expression darkening. "She broke into your grandparents' house." The clubhouse went silent around them. Emily's heartbeat thundered in her ears. Frank slept unknowingly in the next room. Someone he trusted at the hospital, someone who cared for dozens of elderly patients, had broken into their home and stolen Margaret's medication logs. Emily looked at Cole, her voice barely a whisper. "Why would she do that? What is she hiding?" Cole didn't look away from the video. He tapped the screen and whispered the first real confirmation of the danger ahead. She wasn't acting alone. Before Emily could respond, a motorcycle engine roared outside. Not theirs, a stranger's, followed by the sound of a car speeding away. Cole snapped his head toward the front door. "Stay here," he told Emily and Ryder. He stormed outside with Jax and Micah behind him. Emily followed to the doorway and froze. Spray paint covered the side wall of the clubhouse. 3 words, dripping in red. "Back off now." The night stretched in silence. Emily whispered, breathless, "They're threatening you." Cole turned toward her. "No," he said. "They're threatening all of us." The spray-painted message on the clubhouse wall looked fresh. Red paint dripped slowly down the metal siding like the warning had been sprayed just seconds before Cole walked outside. "Back off now." Jack stepped forward immediately, scanning the parking lot. They didn't go far. "I heard the engine." Micah kicked a small can lying near the curb. "This is theirs," he said, "still wet. They were here maybe a minute ago." Cole clenched his jaw. His fists tightened at his sides. This wasn't a random intimidation. This wasn't bored kids. This was deliberate. Emily stood at the doorway, her eyes wide with fear. "They know where you live. They know where we are." Cole turned toward her. They knew that already. Tonight they just decided to show it. Ryder came outside holding his phone. "I checked the footage again. Kelly wasn't acting nervous. She wasn't scared. She was calm. Too calm." Emily looked down at the ground. "I don't understand how she could do this. She always helped the older patients." Cole walked closer to her. "People can pretend for years. They hide behind uniforms, polite smiles, fake kindness. But when money or power shows up, the truth comes out." Emily swallowed hard. "You think Owen Briggs is behind this?" Cole didn't hesitate. "I think he's involved in everything that's happening." Jack stepped beside them. "We need to figure out what they stole from the house, or what they think Frank and Margaret know." Emily shook her head. "My grandmother barely leaves the house. The most she knows about anything is what's on her medication list." Cole's gaze sharpened. "And that list might be the most dangerous thing they've seen." Emily frowned. "Why?" "Because it proves someone altered her dosage," Cole said. "It shows she was fine until the changes started, and those changes were made by someone who had access to her medical file." Emily stared at him, heart pounding. How many other elderly patients had adjustments like hers? Cole didn't answer. He didn't have to. They moved back inside the clubhouse. The air smelled like coffee, leather, and faint gasoline. Lights were dim, but the room felt alive with tension. Linda and the other women were comforting Frank in the guest room. He had woken briefly from the noise and saw the spray-painted message through the window. Linda calmed him, promising that he was safe and that everyone was here to help. Emily stood beside Cole as he and the bikers gathered around the long wooden table. Jax spread out printed screenshots of the video footage from the neighbor's porch camera. Kelly's face wasn't perfectly clear, but her profile, uniform, and badge were unmistakable. Ryder pointed at the timestamps. "She broke in 20 minutes after you left the house. She waited until the ambulance pulled out." Emily pressed her hand against her mouth. "She was watching us." "Or someone told her when you left," Micah added. Cole nodded. "Someone inside the hospital." Emily felt her throat close. "You think more people are involved?" Cole looked her straight in the eye. "Emily, what we're dealing with is organized, planned. Someone is trying to push families out of that neighborhood, and they're doing it through fear, through accidents, through medical mistakes no one questions." Emily's heart dropped. "You're describing a crime ring." "A quiet one," Cole said, "but real." Emily lowered herself into a chair. "This is insane." Ryder leaned on the table. "People ignore crimes when they look like paperwork, when they look like sickness. When the victims are old." Jax added, "It's the perfect way to hide something." Emily rubbed her forehead. The weight of everything pressed down on her all at once. Her grandmother's illness, the break-in, the stalking car, the warning message, Owen's offers, Kelly's involvement, all of it connected. Cole spoke gently but firmly. "Emily, we're not here to scare you. We're here to stop this." She lifted her head slowly. "How?" Cole took a deep breath. "We start with the truth." The next morning, Cole, Emily, and Ryder drove to the neighborhood to speak with the families living near Frank's house. Many of the elderly residents were already awake, sitting on their porches, watering plants, or reading the morning paper. When they saw the bikers, some straightened nervously, but when they saw Emily beside them, they relaxed. Emily introduced herself. "I'm Frank and Margaret Harris's granddaughter. We're checking on everyone after something happened last night." The responses were immediate. An older woman named Mrs. Thompson said, "Nurse Kelly was here 2 days ago. She said she was doing wellness checks, but she kept asking who owned my house. A man across the street, Mr. Sanders, added, "I got a letter from Owen Briggs's company last week. They want to buy my property, said it's urgent." Another neighbor mentioned strange visits from a hospital volunteer. Emily's stomach twisted. "All of you were approached?" Every head nodded. Ryder let out a low whistle. "They're hitting everyone who owns a house on this block." One couple revealed something even more alarming. Their mother had recently passed away at the hospital, and her medication log had errors they were told not to worry about. Emily stared at the ground in shock. "This is bigger than I thought." Cole placed a steady hand on her arm. "That's why we need to move fast." Emily took a deep breath. "We need to look at more hospital records. I have access. If I go through older files, maybe I can find a pattern." Cole agreed. "We'll go with you." Emily nodded. "But if we start doing that, we have to be careful. If someone inside the hospital is involved, we can't let them know we're looking." Cole glanced at Ryder. "We'll be shadows." Meanwhile, Jax and Micah stayed in the neighborhood, helping an elderly couple repair a broken fence. Other bikers arrived shortly after, delivering groceries to residents who were too scared to leave their homes after the break-in news spread. Kids peeked at them from behind screen doors. Elderly folks waved from porches. A few younger men thanked them quietly. The Iron Roads MC didn't ask for recognition. They just worked. It changed the way people looked at them. Emily noticed it too. The bikers weren't intimidating. They were stabilizing the neighborhood, protecting it. Her chest tightened with unexpected admiration. Later that afternoon, Cole and Emily entered the hospital through a side entrance to avoid being seen by too many staff members. They walked down a quiet hallway where Emily stored patient records. She logged in, glanced around to make sure no one was nearby, and began searching. She checked several elderly patients' files from the past few months. At least 5 of them had medication adjustments conducted by Nurse Kelly. Then something else stood out. Emily pointed at the screen. "This patient, Mrs. Crawford, she died last month. Her file shows she had the same type of dosage increase." Cole leaned closer. "Who signed off on it?" Emily clicked a tab. A different doctor signed the form, but Owen Briggs's name appeared on the donation notes. His donation was made to the hospital exactly 3 days before Mrs. Crawford's medication changed. Cole's jaw tightened. "He's been doing this for a long time." Emily kept searching. "There's more. Look at this, another patient from another part of town, similar issue, same pattern, increased medication, signed off suddenly, and..." She paused. "And what?" Cole asked. "Their home was torn down 3 months later," she whispered. Cole clenched the table so hard his knuckles turned white. "Owen is using the hospital to push people out of their neighborhoods. He's targeting the elderly first." Emily's hands trembled. "But that means..." "My grandmother..." Cole finished her thought quietly. "She wasn't supposed to survive." Emily covered her mouth, tears filling her eyes. Cole rested a hand gently on her shoulder. "We'll protect her. We'll protect all of them. I promise." Emily wiped her tears, determination building inside her. "We need proof. Real proof." "We'll find it," Cole said. "Even if we have to dig through every file in this building." Hours later, after gathering printed notes and screenshots, Emily drove with Cole back toward the neighborhood while Ryder stayed behind to scan more documents. Frank had stayed at the clubhouse with Linda and the others, safe and cared for. As they approached the Harris home, something felt wrong. The air seemed tense, too quiet, not normal. Cole slowed the truck. Emily swallowed. "Do you feel that?" Cole didn't answer. He parked near the curb and stepped out. Emily followed, her heart pounding. They walked toward the house. The front yard was intact. The door seemed untouched. But then Cole noticed something. The side of the house smelled faintly like chemicals. He moved around the corner, Emily right beside him, and then he saw it. Black burn marks near the garage door. Charred wood, a melted garden hose, ash on the ground. Emily gasped loudly. "Fire! There was a fire. Cole crouched, examining the soot. They tried to burn the house. Emily pressed a hand to her chest. Grandpa could have been inside. They didn't know he wasn't, Cole said. Emily shook her head in disbelief. This is insane. They're escalating. Cole stood slowly, eyes darkening. This wasn't to scare him. This was to destroy something. Emily's hand trembled. Maybe they thought we hid evidence here. Cole nodded. Or maybe someone panicked after we saw the footage of Kelly. Emily looked up at him. What do we do now? Cole took a deep breath. We fight back all the way. Before she could respond, a fire truck pulled up the street, apparently called by a neighbor earlier that morning. The firefighters gestured to the damage, asking questions. Emily answered best she could, leaving out Kelly's name for now. But one of the firefighters pointed at something near the burned garage door. A small device. Metal. Slightly melted. Cole picked it up carefully. An accelerant trigger, the firefighter said. Someone set this. Emily felt like the world spun. So it was arson. Cole's voice was low. Yeah. Then his phone buzzed. It was Ryder. Cole answered. What's up? Ryder's voice came through, urgent. Cole, you need to get back here now. What happened? Cole asked sharply. There was a pause. Then Ryder spoke again, voice tight. It's Margaret. Something's happening in the ICU. Emily froze. What? What happened? She demanded. Ryder hesitated, then said, She's crashing. And the doctor found something in her IV line. Something that shouldn't be there. Emily gasped, her face going pale. Cole tightened his grip on the phone. We're on our way. He hung up and grabbed Emily's arm gently but firmly. We need to go. Now. Emily felt panic rising in her chest. Cole, if someone tampered with her IV. Cole shook his head. We're not losing her. Not now. They ran to the truck, engines roaring as they sped toward the hospital. Emily's eyes filled with tears. Cole kept his eyes on the road, jaw tight, heart pounding. And for the first time since this started, he was afraid. Not for himself. For them. For the family he didn't know he needed. For the truth that was getting too close. And for the woman lying unconscious in a hospital bed, whose life was the key to everything. The drive back to the hospital felt endless. Emily stared through the windshield, her hands gripping the dashboard as if that could make the truck go faster. Her chest rose and fell in short, sharp breaths. Margaret is crashing. Something in her IV line. Ryder's words echoed in her head. Cole kept his eyes locked on the road, pushing the truck as far as he dared. His jaw was tight, his knuckles white around the steering wheel. Breathe, he said without looking at her. If you pass out, you can't help her. Emily tried. She inhaled, held, exhaled. Her heart still hammered, but she forced herself to stay focused. She was stable this morning, she whispered. She was stable. And someone didn't like that, Cole said. The truck pulled into the hospital parking lot. Cole stopped so fast the tires squealed. Before the engine even settled, Emily had the door open. They ran through the sliding doors and straight to the ICU floor. Ryder was waiting in the hallway. His usually relaxed face was serious now. She's in there, he said, nodding toward Margaret's room. Doctor is with her. They pushed something out of her system. She's hanging on. Emily rushed to the glass window. Margaret lay on the bed, surrounded by machines and wires. Nurses moved quickly around her. A doctor adjusted something on a monitor, watching the numbers closely. Emily pressed her palm to the glass. Grandma. Cole stood behind her, eyes scanning every corner of the hallway. ICU staff, passing doctors, security. He didn't trust any of them. The doctor stepped out of the room a minute later, pulling off his gloves. He recognized Emily immediately. You're her granddaughter, he said. We stabilized her for now. Her heart rate dropped very low. We caught it in time. Emily moved closer. What happened? You said something was in her IV. The doctor lowered his voice. We found a clear fluid in the IV line that was not in the chart. It was not on any prescription. Emily's throat tightened. What was it? We're still analyzing, the doctor said, but it was enough to make her heart slow almost to a stop. Emily felt sick. Someone tried to kill her. The doctor didn't say it out loud, but his eyes confirmed it. We're informing hospital administration, and we'll have to contact the police. Good, Cole said. Start now. The doctor glanced at him, then back at Emily. Do you have any idea who could have accessed her IV? Emily looked straight at him. Nurse Kelly has been around her more than anyone. The doctor frowned. Kelly? She's been here for years. She has no record of complaints. Emily shook her head. That doesn't mean anything. Ryder stepped forward. We have video of her breaking into the patient's home last night. We'll give it to the police. The doctor's eyes widened. She broke into their house? Yes, Emily said. And now there's something in my grandmother's IV that shouldn't be there. What else do you need? The doctor exhaled. All right, I'll cooperate. I'll make sure this is documented and reported. He walked away toward the nurse's station. Emily watched him go, then turned to Cole. She's not safe here. Cole nodded. We'll make her safe. How? Emily asked. We can't move her. She needs equipment, machines, doctors. We can't move her, Cole agreed, but we can make it very hard for anyone to get near her without us seeing. Ryder nodded. We'll have someone stationed on this floor at all times. Emily looked at them, eyes full of fear and hope. You'd really do that? Cole answered without hesitation. Yes. Later that afternoon, the police came. A detective with tired eyes and a strong posture met Emily, Cole, and Ryder in a small office near the ICU. They showed him the porch camera footage of Nurse Kelly breaking into Frank and Margaret's house. They explained the break-in, the stolen documents, the fire attempt on the garage, and now the tampered IV line. The detective listened without interrupting. When the video ended, he leaned back in his chair. This is serious, he said. If a hospital worker tampered with patient medication, we're talking about attempted murder, maybe more than one. Emily nodded. I can help you access medical records. I've already seen strange patterns. The detective raised his hand. Careful, miss. Anything you access without authorization may become messy in court. Emily straightened. What about the people who are dying quietly? Is that not messy? Cole watched the detective's reaction closely. The man sighed and rubbed his forehead. Look, I'm not saying I won't investigate, I will. But to build a solid case, we need to proceed the right way. And if someone is paying off hospital staff, they may also be paying off someone in law enforcement. Cole stepped forward. Is that you? The detective held his gaze. No, that's why I'm still here. A tense silence passed. Then the detective continued. I'll start with Nurse Kelly. We'll bring her in for questioning. I'll request access to her shift records and the patients she's handled in the last year. Emily frowned. What about Owen Briggs? The detective's jaw tightened slightly. Owen has lawyers. He has influence. I can't drag him in here based on suspicion and a donation record. Not yet. Cole's voice stayed calm but firm. Then build what you need because he's not going to stop. The detective nodded slowly. I will. But until then, you need to be careful. All of you. Word spread fast through the hospital staff. Nurses whispered near the station. Doctors exchanged glances. Security guards stood near doors they hadn't watched closely before. Nurse Kelly didn't show up for her next shift. She's not answering her phone, one nurse said quietly. She called in sick, another added. At least that's what I heard. Emily watched all of it, feeling like she was trapped inside a building that held both life and danger. Cole spent the next hours moving between the hallway and Margaret's room. He stayed quiet, but his presence alone changed the atmosphere. People noticed the patched leather vest with Iron Roads MC on the back. They noticed the tattoos, the hard eyes, the way he positioned himself near the door like a guard. No one touched Margaret's IV line without Emily or Cole watching. Frank arrived that evening, brought by Jax. He shuffled into the room, eyes full of concern and love. When he saw his wife, he broke down. "Hey, my girl," he whispered, taking her hand gently. "I heard you scared everybody today." Emily stood beside him. "She's fighting, Grandpa." "She always does," he said, tears rolling down his cheeks. "She always did." That night, the bikers held a meeting in the clubhouse while Emily and Frank stayed at the hospital. Cole sat at the head of the long table. Jax, Ryder, Micah, and a few more brothers filled the seats. "They tried to burn his house," Jax said. "They moved from quiet threats to open fire." Micah nodded. "They want the neighborhood. They're not even hiding it anymore." Another biker, Vince, spoke up. "I talked to a guy who works at the city office. There's a redevelopment proposal being reviewed. Guess whose name is on it?" He slid a printed document across the table. Cole read it. At the top of the page, Owen Briggs Development Group. Under it, plans to turn their entire neighborhood into a luxury complex. Jax cursed under his breath. They already planned the demolition. Cole placed the paper on the table. "So this is what our people are worth to them." Lines on a paper. Vince added, "The project notes say most residents have agreed to sell or will likely relocate due to age or health." Silence fell, because everyone at that table now understood what that meant. Ryder spoke, voice low. "They're counting on these people being too sick, too tired, or dead by the time construction starts." Cole took a deep breath. "We're not letting that happen." The men around him nodded. Micah leaned forward. "What's the plan?" Cole thought for a moment, his mind spinning through options. "First, we protect Frank, Margaret, and Emily," he said. "We keep someone at that hospital at all times. Nobody touches Margaret without one of us seeing." "Done," Jack said. "Second," Cole continued, "we help the neighbors. We let them know what's going on. If they understand what Owen is trying to do, they might refuse to sign anything." "Some will be scared," Vince said. "Owen doesn't play fair." Cole nodded. "That's why we'll stand between him and them." The brothers around the table agreed without hesitation. "Third," Cole said, "we work with the detective, quietly. We give him every document we can get our hands on, every medication log, every proof of donation and timing." Ryder smirked a little. "Already ahead of you on that." Cole gave him a quick nod. "And last," he paused, his voice firm, "we make it clear to Owen Briggs that this neighborhood is not for sale." Back at the hospital, it was late. The hallway outside Margaret's room was dim. Only a few lamps were on. The beeping of machines formed a steady rhythm. Emily sat in a chair beside the bed, holding her grandmother's hand. "Grandma," she whispered, "I don't know how much you can hear, but everything is coming out. What they did to you, what they did to others. It's not going to stay hidden." She looked at her grandmother's peaceful face and felt a wave of tenderness and anger at the same time. "I used to think bikers were trouble," she admitted softly. "Now they're the only ones I trust." She glanced toward the door. Cole stood there, leaning on the frame. He didn't say anything, but his eyes were kind. "Do you ever get tired of carrying the world on your shoulders?" she asked quietly. He gave a faint smile. "I don't carry the world. Just the people I refuse to lose." Emily's throat tightened. "You think we can win this?" "Yes," Cole said with simple certainty. "Because we're not fighting for money. We're fighting for them." Before Emily could answer, an alarm on one of the monitors beeped. She looked up quickly. The heart rate on the screen dipped, then stabilized. Emily let out a breath. "You scared me," she whispered to her grandmother. Cole stepped closer, checking the tubing, the IV, the monitor. Everything looked regular, for the moment. The next day, the detective returned with news. He pulled Emily and Cole aside into a small consultation room. "We tried to bring Nurse Kelly in," he said. "She didn't show up at her apartment. She didn't show up at her sister's place either." Emily's heart sank. "So she ran." "Looks that way," the detective replied. "But we searched her locker at the hospital. We found a notebook. It had a list of patient names, dates, and amounts written next to them." "Amounts?" Cole asked. Numbers, the detective said. Same amounts repeated near certain dates when medication changes happen. It looks like a payment record. I'll know more when we go through it. Emily felt cold. She kept records of what she was paid to do? Some criminals do, the detective said. They want to keep track of what they're owed. Is Owen's name in it? Cole asked. The detective shook his head. No. But the payment source is a company tied to one of his shell corporations. It's messy, but the connection is there. Emily felt a flicker of hope. So you can go after him now? Not fully, the detective answered. But we're getting closer. Cole exhaled slowly. Step by step, the walls around Owen's secret world were closing in. That evening, as the sun went down, the hospital grew quiet again. Emily stood by the window in Margaret's room, looking at the city lights. Frank sat in the chair by the bed, humming an old tune he used to sing with his wife. Cole leaned against the wall, arms folded, watching over both of them like a guard dog. For a moment, peace hovered in the room. Emily turned around. She looks more relaxed today. The monitors beeped steadily. The IV drip fell in slow, regular drops. Frank smiled softly. She always was a fighter. Cole nodded. So are you. Frank chuckled. I had to be. I married a strong woman. Emily walked to her grandfather and hugged him from the side. He squeezed her hand. Cole watched them with quiet respect. Families like this were the reason he rode, the reason he fought, the reason he refused to walk away. He stepped toward the bed, placing a hand gently on the rail. Margaret, he said softly, you hang on. We're almost there. We're going to finish this. Frank nodded. She hears you. I know she does. Emily felt a sting behind her eyes. When she wakes up, I want her to see everything fixed. I want her to know she wasn't just a victim. She was the reason people like Owen got exposed. Cole looked at her. She will. For a few long seconds, the only sounds were the machines. Then, without warning, one of the alarms started beeping faster. The heart rate on the monitor spiked, then dropped sharply. Emily's eyes flew to the screen. No, no, no. Frank stood up, panic in his eyes. What's happening? Cole hit the emergency button on the wall. Nurses rushed in. Step back, one of them ordered. Emily grabbed her grandfather, pulling him away from the bed as a doctor burst into the room. The monitor flatlined for a second. A long, terrible tone filled the air. Start compressions, the doctor shouted. Emily's vision blurred with tears. Grandma, Frank sobbed, clinging to her. Cole stood frozen for one heartbeat, his past slamming into his present. Another person on a bed. Another monitor. Another line turning straight. He refused to relive that failure. He took one step closer to the door, watching every move, every hand, every tube. If there was even one sign of sabotage, he would see it. The doctor pressed down on Margaret's chest, counting out loud. Nurses stood ready with emergency medication. The flatline tone continued. Long, loud, unforgiving. Emily whispered, Please, please. Frank shook his head, tears streaming. Don't take her. Please don't. Cole's fists trembled at his sides. The room spun with urgency. The machine screamed. And then, the flatline tone was the worst sound Emily had ever heard. It filled every corner of the ICU room, long and sharp, a sound that sliced through hope and turned it into fear. Nurses moved fast. The doctor leaned over Margaret, counting compressions with steady pressure. Come on, he muttered under his breath. Come on. Frank sobbed in Emily's arms. Cole stood near the doorway, fists clenched, eyes locked on every detail happening around Margaret's bed. His heart pounded so hard he could feel it in his throat. He'd lived this moment before, helpless, furious, too late. Not again. Not this family. Not this woman. Charging, a nurse announced as she prepared the paddles. Emily buried her face against Frank's shoulder, trembling. The paddles pressed against Margaret's chest. A jolt shook her body. The line stayed flat. No, Emily whispered. The doctor tried again. Charging. Clear. Another jolt. The line jumped, then dropped again. Frank cried openly now, barely able to stand. Cole took one step inside the room. Do everything you can. The doctor didn't even look back. We're not giving up. 30 seconds passed, then 1 full minute, the longest of their lives. Another shock, another beep, and then the line flickered. Once, twice, and then beep, beep, beep. The heart monitor returned to life. Emily gasped, covering her mouth. Frank fell back into a chair, crying with relief. Cole's shoulders lowered, tension melting like he'd been holding his breath for hours. The doctor stepped back, exhaling hard. She's back. It was close, but she's back. Emily leaned against the wall, tears rolling down her face. Thank you. Thank you. Frank pressed his forehead against the rail of the bed. Thank you, God, thank you. Cole stepped forward and placed a steady hand on Frank's back. She's strong, he said quietly. She wasn't going anywhere. But Emily noticed something behind Cole's calm voice. He was shaking, a little, just enough to show how deeply this moment hit him. They allowed only 2 people to stay in the room after the emergency. Emily and Frank sat close, holding Margaret's hands. Cole stood outside, guarding the door like a silent wall of protection. He didn't trust anyone here, not after what had happened. Hours passed. Margaret's breathing steadied. Her color returned. Machines hummed softly, no longer screaming danger. Finally, just as the first morning light touched the blinds, Margaret's eyelids fluttered. Emily gasped and leaned forward. Grandma? Frank's hand trembled in hers. Margaret, honey? Her eyes opened, slowly, weakly, but they opened. A tear rolled down Emily's cheek. You're awake. Margaret blinked a few times, confused at all the lights and machines. Her voice came out soft, thin, but real. Emily. Frank? What happened? Frank kissed her forehead. You scared us, my love. But you're safe now. Margaret turned her head slightly and saw Cole standing in the doorway. She smiled faintly. You're the young man from the house, she whispered. You came back. Cole's throat tightened. I wasn't going to leave. Margaret nodded weakly. I knew you wouldn't. Emily covered her grandmother's hand with hers. Grandma, we found out what they did, and we're stopping them. All of it. Margaret closed her eyes, relieved. Good. Emily wiped her eyes. Rest. We're right here. That afternoon, the detective returned, but this time he wasn't alone. 2 uniformed officers accompanied him. He pulled Emily and Cole into a conference room. We got her, he said. Emily lifted her head. Kelly? He nodded. She tried to leave the state. Highway patrol caught her. She had medication vials, burner phones, and cash in her car. Cole crossed his arms. What did she say? The detective smirked. She cracked fast. She admitted she was paid to alter medications and redirect outcomes for elderly patients in certain neighborhoods. Emily felt sick. Redirect outcomes? What a disgusting way to say kill people. She didn't say she killed anyone directly, the detective clarified, but she admitted to accelerating deteriorations. And Owen Briggs? Cole asked. The detective leaned back in his chair. We traced the payments. Kelly didn't get them from Owen personally, but from a company tied to his development group. When she said his name in her statement, that changed everything. Emily exhaled sharply. So you can arrest him now? We did, the detective said. This morning. Emily nearly collapsed in relief. Thank God. Cole didn't smile, but his eyes softened with victory. The detective continued. There will be trials, long ones, and he'll fight hard. But we have enough to keep him locked up for now. Emily nodded, her hands trembling slightly. Thank you. The detective stood. You did the hard part, you brought the truth to the surface. And he left them with one last sentence. You saved a lot of people. 2 days later, Margaret was moved out of the ICU. Emily and Frank brought flowers and cards from neighbors. The whole block had come together to support them. When Margaret saw the balloons and the stack of homemade cookies on her bedside table, she chuckled. Looks like being almost murdered makes you popular. Emily laughed with tears in her eyes. Grandma. Cole visited often, standing in the corner, arms crossed, silent but warm. Margaret called him over. You sit too far away, she said. Come here. Cole obeyed like a guilty grandson. Margaret took his hand. Thank you for saving me. Cole shook his head. You saved yourself. You fought. Margaret smiled. Maybe. But you held the world outside my door so it wouldn't hurt me again. Cole didn't speak for a long moment. Then he whispered, I'm honored to know you. Margaret squeezed his hand. You're family now, whether you want it or not. Emily watched the exchange, feeling her heart twist in a way she didn't expect. She stepped outside with Cole afterward, needing air. The late afternoon sun painted the parking lot gold. Cars passed, nurses walked by, but the moment felt strangely private between them. Emily crossed her arms. You know, in the beginning I thought you were trouble. Cole raised a brow. You made that pretty clear. Emily laughed softly. I judged you by your vest, your tattoos, your bike. I didn't know that bikers help people, he said gently. That you help people the way you do, she corrected. Cole shrugged. I've seen too many people get hurt because no one stepped in. Emily lowered her voice. Do you ever get to rest? Or do you carry everyone's pain forever? Cole looked at her for a long time before answering. I carry what matters. Emily held his gaze. Does my family matter? Cole took a slow step closer. Yes. Her heartbeat jumped. And, do I matter? He didn't touch her. He didn't rush. He simply spoke the truth. You matter more than you know. Emily's throat tightened. I didn't expect you. Cole brushed a loose hair from her cheek. I didn't expect you either. She didn't kiss him yet. It wasn't the moment, but it was real. The beginning of something strong, something steady, something earned. 1 week later, Margaret returned home. The neighborhood gathered around the Harris house. Bikers, neighbors, kids, even the firefighters who had responded to the arson attempt. People brought food, tools, and hugs. The iron roads. MC rebuilt the garage, repainted the yard fence, and replaced the broken back door. Margaret sat in a lawn chair wrapped in a blanket, laughing with Frank. Emily stood beside Cole as he supervised the repairs. You did all this? She asked. Cole shook his head. No, we did. She leaned into his side, not shy anymore. He wrapped an arm around her, just as natural. Grandma's going to be okay, Emily said softly. Cole looked at Margaret, who waved at them from across the yard. She will, he said, because she has a whole army of people watching over her. Emily smiled. Including a biker with a big heart? Cole chuckled. Maybe him most of all. She rested her head on his chest. So what now? Cole kissed the top of her head gently. Now? Now we live. And whenever trouble shows up again, he nodded toward the street, where 20 motorcycles were lined up, engines rumbling softly, waiting. We ride into it together. Emily's eyes lit with warmth. That sounds perfect. And Cole smiled, a real, full smile, the first in a very long time. The bikers saved the neighborhood. The truth came out, Margaret lived, and love found a place among all the chaos.